The dawn of the 1990s also saw the death of commercial pop and, in its wake, the rise of grunge, alt-rock, and hip-hop. Within months, muted flannel had smothered all traces of 80s excess and flamboyance with the emergence of acts like Nirvana, Metallica, and Guns N' Roses. The likes of Bobby Brown and MC Hammer proved hip-hop's commercial staying power. Music tastes were rapidly evolving, and Michael Jackson was determined to not only keep up, but to break new ground once again. Unshackled by musical convention, Dangerous was the first album in which Jackson explored rapping, beatboxing, scat singing, finger snapping, and worked as comfortably with the likes of Slash as he did the Andre Crouch gospel choir or rapper Heavy D. It took 4 producers, 2 studios, and 16 months to forge Jackson's new sound for the 1990s. Dangerous encompasses the different facets of Jackson's artistry and contains all the nuances of the man who wanted to be the greatest performer the world had ever seen, and also to be left alone. The one who wanted world peace, but didn't have peace of mind. At the height of his powers, Jackson gave all of what he possibly could to create this lasting, beautiful contradiction.
Hollywood is a place where are sacrificed. So this is not just
Diction. Dangerous was criticized for being too long, over the top, and musically disjointed. An unanticipated shift in mood. If traditional R&B couldn't express a certain emotion, he found a style that could. Albums, he believed, were journeys, and he wanted to take people places they'd never been before. If its album cover is anything to go by, a fantastical adventure equally as full of wonder as treacherous and characterized by the surreal and macabre. The greatest show on earth, guided by the greatest showman the world has ever had the pleasure of witnessing. This is Dangerous 30, a video series chronicling every detail in the construction of Michael Jackson's most ambitious musical triumph, honoring the 30th anniversary since its worldwide release on November 26, 1991. So for those of us who like living dangerously, this one is for you. A phenomenon, and the Bad album taking that to a global status, then where else can you go once proving yourself to be the most celebrated artist of a generation? As Michael Jackson would begin to navigate a new decade at the top of the pop universe, whatever musical direction he chose next would have inevitably been met with intrigue and skepticism. For an artist who made such an indelible mark on the music landscape the decade before, the question persisted, could lightning strike again for the 1990s? After his final show of the Bad World Tour in January 1989, which effectively meant the end of the Bad album cycle, Jackson made it clear that there was a change in the air. He proclaimed that he would never tour again.
The audience is going crazy out there. How are you going to stay away from it? I don't know.
That a big movie career was on the horizon and that he would still create music, but his longtime producer, Quincy Jones, was out. It has since surfaced that the two had come to loggerheads several times during the recording of Bad. As Jackson matured and star power strengthened, his confidence grew as a producer, and he had no problem disagreeing with some of Jones' methods. Larry Williams, a musician in the sessions, revealed there was definite friction there. Michael was very eager to prove he could produce, as well as sing and dance. Jackson passed comment on issues he had while working with Quincy in his 1988 autobiography, Moonwalk. We fight, we disagreed on some things. If we struggle at all, it's about new stuff, the latest technology. I'll say, Quincy, you know, music changes all the time. I want the latest drum sounds that people are doing. I want to go beyond the latest things.
Well, you also go on to make Bad with Michael. And there's stories about, I mean, you've talked about it before, that it wasn't easy, your relationship together working on these records. It was challenging at times. Was that a hindrance, or did that actually help create what?
Listen, what am I going to learn from Michael? Man? I don't want to be a singer and a dancer, but everything else he doesn't have, we had, you know. So I didn't ask him about anything. He told me what songs he was going to sing. A producer has to do that, you know. You don't ask him what songs he's going to sing.
Contrary to popular belief, Michael was not angry with Quincy collaborating. He always had an admiration for him and an immense respect. Michael was always very independent, and he also wanted to show that his success was not because of one man, namely Quincy. Many thought he was crazy to part ways with Jones given the pair's unprecedented success together. Yet Jackson was driven by the challenge and the idea of acting as an executive producer and working with a fresh canvas. He began experimenting with a group of talented producers and engineers he had developed relationships with previously, including Bill Bottrell and Brian Lauren. Later in the process, he also brought back longtime engineer Bruce Swedian, who claimed that Jackson had been crafting songs for his next musical output as far back as 1987. Michael started the day we finished Bad. The next day, he was doing more demos. The first project? Well, after achieving the biggest selling album of all time, as well as a decade full of groundbreaking hits, Michael Jackson and his record label were keen to commemorate his impact on music during the 1980s through a series of award show appearances in glitzy showbiz photo calls, where press and public would be reminded of Jackson's trailblazing accomplishments. As part of this effort, a compilation of his greatest hits, plus some brand new material, was planned, and an album title was even chosen, Decade. Michael Jackson signed off on the idea in early 1989, receiving $18 million as an advance. Recording took place primarily at Record One, a branch of Ocean Way Studios in Sherman Oaks, where Jackson had executive control over the facility for $4,000 per day. Known as the Rock Guy, Bill Bottrell was forced out of the production of Bad by Quincy Jones, but Jackson brought the producer and songwriter back, creating demos for tracks that would eventually become Give In To Me and Black or White, as well as parts for Dangerous and Who Is It?
By early '86, Michael started the album with Quincy, so I was done. But Michael said I would be on his next album as a producer.
Swibbler AI writes full-length books in minutes. Just input your book idea and let our AI transform it.
But Michael said I would be on his next album as a producer. So by the time Michael was ready, I did not feel the weight of that responsibility. If I went to bed at night and I thought, oh my God, Quincy Jones is not producing Michael and I am, maybe I would have a little twinge, but basically I knew what I wanted to do. I knew me and Michael were very tight. We sat for a year and a half making music and making tracks, and it was a very, he was alone. He didn't have other work to do during that year and a half. So really it was very free time for him.
For most of the rhythm tracks, Jackson worked with Brian Lauren at Westlake Studios. Together they recorded a series of demos that included Work That Body, She Got It, Serious Effect, Don't Believe It, 7 Digits, and Men in Black. Lauren's motivation was to recapture the organic R&B feeling of Jackson's past albums.
I wanted to make a record as consistent as Off the Wall. That was my goal. Off the Wall was my target. So if you think about Bad and Thriller, those were very pop records entirely. I wanted Michael to return to something funkier.
LL Cool J was invited to rap on Serious Effect and Truth About You because Jackson wanted to add hip-hop to the record. LL Cool J had been critical of Jackson, but praised him after their collaboration.
I can understand Michael Jackson. I like Michael Jackson a lot. I have a lot of respect for him. I would love to achieve the same success or greater success than Michael Jackson, but I would never allow myself to be isolated from the world. Collaborating with him was incredible because before we did anything, he would sit there and play a lot of music for me.
you know, so he's playing the music, he's dancing around the studio, it's just me and him. It was amazing just watching him, how much passion he had for the music, how excited he was about the project. I mean, he really was excited about what he was doing. I mean, you know, there was a lot of passion, there was a lot of energy. It was just amazing, you know. It was deep.
Decade was originally scheduled for a late 1989 release, but was delayed several times. A mock-up of the album artwork was even commissioned, with Jackson immortalized, etched into stone like an ancient prophet. This premise later utilized in visualizing 1995's History album. The artwork also reveals its working track list, that the compilation was never intended to be chronological. This list includes Billie Jean, Beat It, It Doesn't Really Matter, which would later be renamed to Who Is It?, The Girl Is Mine, Rock With You, She's Out of My Life, Thriller, Say, 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 The Way You Make Me Feel, Dirty Diana, Heartbreak Hotel, Black or White, set for November 1990, but in June of that year, the artist collapsed while dancing in his home studio due to a possible panic attack. With baby sister Janet led pop into new territory with the release of her Rhythm Nation 1814 album, a masterful fusion of R&B, funk, and rock music. The newly emerging sounds of hip-hop, grunge rock,